Hi, welcome to Nikki's Modern Mediterranean. I'm Nikki Gleckis, wife, mother, CEO, and entertaining expert. Today I'm going to show you how to perfectly dye a Greek red Easter egg. To get started on making our perfect red Greek Easter eggs, we are going to start with brown eggs, which is my little secret of making them really, really red. And what we're gonna do is we are gonna just hard boil these by boiling some water. I'm gonna do about a half a pot of water for about 12 eggs today. And I'm gonna get that to a rolling boil. And then once that comes to a boil, I'm just gonna lower the heat and carefully put my eggs in so that we can get them hard boiled, and then we're gonna get the dye ready. So I'm just gonna carefully put these in. So it's a little different when we were growing up. If you are Greek, Orthodox, you would traditionally dye eggs on a specific day of Holy Week. So you would dye these on Holy Thursday. And it wasn't always that fun, different color pastels. We really just used the red egg. So the dye that I'm gonna show you today, you'll actually be able to boil and dye up to 30 eggs. But today I'm just gonna do 12. And I'll have that recipe online for you. And carefully put these in. I don't wanna crack any. If you do by chance crack one of the eggs, you'll see that the egg yolks are gonna be coming out. Just take that one out so that it doesn't mess up the rest. So it's been about 15 minutes. Our eggs are hard boiled. And I'm gonna show you a little trick if you wanna really make sure that they are completely hard boiled before we put them in the cold water bath. So here is a non-hard boiled egg. I can hear the yolk moving. I'm gonna spin that so you could see that it's kind of slow spinning, a little wonky there. So I'm gonna take one of them out from our hard boiled water here. If it spins really fast like that, then you know it's really hard boiled and they are ready to get dyed. So that's my little trick. If you want to do that with the kids, you can also shake it a little and you can hear that they're completely hard boiled. This is some cold water that I'm actually gonna add a little bit of ice to it. By adding hard boiled eggs to cold water, they're gonna make sure that the shell does not stick to the yolk when you go to crack them. But two, this will also, once they're cool, will help the dye absorb to the egg itself. So I'm gonna take these out carefully. I'm using a spoon that has some slits so that I don't get hot water all over the place. Put them in there. And once I put them in the cold water bath, then we'll get our dye ready. So I've gotten all my eggs out of the hot water. They're in a cold water bath, and now we're gonna get our dye ready. So now that I have this perfectly hot water sitting in this pot, I'm actually gonna just use this water and add my red dye to this and my vinegar so that I can use the same pot for dyeing the eggs. So you'll need enough water to cover the eggs, which I know that I have in this pot. We're gonna use, run your faucet and get some water nice and hot, put it in a full glass, and we're gonna dissolve this, very important, this Greek red Easter dye. You can buy this online or at a local Greek market if you have one near you. So this dye is very potent, and this one particularly will dye up to 30 Easter eggs, which is really important if you're having your whole big Greek family coming over for Easter. So you're just I'm gonna cut this and dissolve it into this hot water, but I do wanna tell you that it will stain your counter or your clothes, so please really be careful. This is not a step that you would wanna do with kids. You could even wear gloves if you feel like you don't wanna get it on your fingers. I've done this enough times that I think that I could do it without gloves, but if you have them near you, you should try that. So I'm just gonna cut the top and dissolve that right into the water. And it's gonna be this really deep red color. Put that in there. So I'm dissolving this right in the hot water, just giving it a little stir to make sure that it's all dissolved. And now I'm gonna add this right to the hot water. So another trick look at that for the glass. It will come off, but I'm using a metal spoon, not a wooden spoon, so that it doesn't dye the wooden spoon, because that would definitely absorb the color. So I'm giving this a nice stir. You don't have to put the heat back up since the water had already boiled. So I'm gonna give that a nice stir. I'm actually gonna use this glass to store my spoon while I'm getting the dye ready. And then the next step is I'm adding 1 cup of white vinegar. This is a really important step because this is what's gonna help absorb the color. Look, I got it on my fingers already. Absorb the color to the eggs. So I'm gonna add that in and stir that. Again, you wanna really make sure that the dye is well absorbed in the water before we add in our cold eggs. Another tip, if you have a magic eraser, keep that on hand, because if you get a little bit of the dye on your white countertops like I did, I'm gonna spray this and use a magic eraser to get that off. So that's my other tip. Okay, our dye is ready. I'm just gonna wash my hands and then we're gonna get the eggs into the dye. I have the red dye ready, and I'm gonna carefully take our cold eggs. You need to let them sit in the cold water for at least 5 to 10 minutes so that they're nice and cold to touch. So I'm gonna just air dry that, put it on my spoon, and drop them in the water carefully. And they're just gonna sit in the dye for about 5 minutes. So again, this dye in this pot, if you wanted to dye, 12 eggs now and dye some more later, you can just leave this dye on the pot and reuse it later. You don't have to do all. So our eggs have been in there for about 5 minutes. I'm gonna take some paper towels, really important. You don't want the dye to stain any of your plates or anything. So I'm just gonna put some paper towels down on a platter and remove the eggs. I can't wait to see the red color. Moment of truth, we have red. So we're gonna take these out. I'm gonna put them down. Look at that red color, so pretty. I'm gonna pour these down here and we're gonna let them dry on the paper towel, and then we're gonna shine them up with some olive oil so that they can be nice and shiny. Notice I'm being super careful so that I don't get this on my clothes. Growing up, it was so important that you had red eggs. If you use a white egg, you're gonna see that sometimes it's not gonna come that really deep red color, and also the vinegar is really a key component in getting them really. So I've taken them out of our dye, and I'm gonna leave the dye here just in case I wanna boil some more or dye some more eggs later. So I'm gonna keep that over here. And our eggs are ready for shine. So I have the eggs on the paper towels to really dry them. And again, I don't wanna stain my fingers, so I'm just gonna take a paper towel just to move it around to make sure that they're completely dry. And I'm gonna pick it up like this. So you can see now the egg is really nice and dried. So I'm gonna put them here, make sure they're all dry, and then I'm gonna polish them to make them nice and shiny. And if you get it on your fingers, just wash your hands with soap right away and it'll come off. And then I'm just gonna take my paper towel. I have a little oil in here. I'm just gonna dip that in, So not only does this really, the oil will get them nice and shiny and look so beautiful, but also it's gonna help make sure that the dye is not gonna come up on your fingers or your platter when you put them in a bowl to serve them. We're gonna shine these up, and if you were making them during Holy Week, on Holy Thursday, another tip would be keep your egg carton that you put them in before, and then you could place them in your egg carton, easily store them in your fridge. That's always something that we used to do when we were younger, because if you're dyeing a couple dozen eggs, it's kind of hard to store in your fridge. So I'm just gonna put them in my platter here, in my nice little bowl, and stick. Our eggs are ready, and Nicholas and I are gonna find our winning eggs so that we can play our traditional Greek game. So you find your egg first. You think that's the winner? All right. Ready? I beat you, I won. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. For the full recipe, visit nikkigleckis.com. We wish you all a very happy Easter. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Happy